It's a pretty normal thing to think, man, am I in trouble because we're not supposed to kill each other? But I had to. And if I hadn't, he could have killed my teammates. But it still feels like you're not supposed to do this. It was a big deal for my teammate to tell me, good hit, good job.
Welcome to episode 369 of FBI Case File Review with Jerry Williams. I'm a retired agent on a mission to show you who the FBI is and what the FBI does through my books, my blog, and my podcast case reviews with former colleagues. Today, we get to speak to retired agent Jeremy Rebmann, who served in the FBI for 23 years. In this episode, Jeremy reviews 3 SWAT operations he took part in as a sniper on the Oklahoma City FBI SWAT team. He provides details about a mission at Glass Mountain, Oklahoma, during which the subject of the operation was fatally wounded. He also reviews the SWAT arrest of an attempted bombing subject and the unexpected rescue of 3 little girls during a SWAT mission to locate and arrest their fugitive father. Jeremy is the author of Send Me, Chronicles of an FBI Sniper, the retelling of 13 of the 20 high-risk missions he and his teammates executed during his 21 years on the SWAT team. To learn more, visit his website at FBISniper.com. Jeremy was assigned to the Oklahoma City field office, where he primarily worked counterintelligence matters, much of which is classified. During his years on the SWAT team, he was an operator, an assault team leader, a lead medic, senior firearms instructor, and sniper team leader. The missions he and his team executed were the culmination of excellent cases run by case agents working in offices around the country. Jeremy also served in medical mission trips, providing medical care in Mexico, Ghana, Uganda, Togo, Ecuador, Haiti, and Nicaragua. After completing a total of 32 years of government service, Jeremy now volunteers at his church, local shelters, food banks, and serves in a lay counselor ministry. Now, before we get to the case review, I'm excited to announce that I've been invited to speak about the FBI in books, TV, and movies, myths, and misconceptions at the Wilmington University Center for Law, Justice, and Society True Crime Series. If you're going to be in the Philadelphia, Delaware area on November 11th, that's Veterans Day, I hope to see you there. The event is open to the public. The cost is free. However, registration is required. The link to register is on the homepage of my website, jerrywilliams.com. In your podcast app's description of this episode, there's a link to the show notes at jerrywilliams.com. You'll also find links to where you can buy me a cup of coffee, join my reader team about crime fiction and the FBI in books, TV, and movies, and learn more about me and my books. Thank you for your support. Now here's the show. I want to welcome my guest, retired agent Jeremy Rebmann. Hey, Jeremy, how are you?
Hi, Jerry. I'm doing great.
Or should I call you J Money?
Yeah, you sure can.
No, I'll call you Jeremy. I'm excited to have you on the show to talk about a number of your SWAT assignments and deployments. I just finished reading your book, Send Me, Chronicles of an FBI Sniper, and I was enthralled. I love the writing. I love the stories. I love the suspense and heart-pounding crises and complications and climaxes. It's really very well-written book, and I definitely recommend it to everyone.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
We'll talk more about the book and why you decided to write it at the very end. At this point, I really think we need to explain to listeners who are not members of law enforcement what SWAT is and how you become a member of the SWAT team. We'll do a little bit on that first before we go into some of your deployments.
I think that's a great point. One of the reasons I wrote the book is because FBI SWAT's pretty widely misunderstood. To answer your question, the FBI SWAT team are special agent men and women around the nation that do specific high-risk stuff, but they are all also case agents and investigators. So I actually like to tell people that the thing that makes FBI SWAT special is it's really our nation's only high-risk warrant special operations detective force. You have a group of people that are seasoned investigators that are doing high-risk work. There's really no other organization like it.
Tell everyone how you train, because if you're case agents who are working in the field, then how do you get your expertise in SWAT?
Yeah, and to back up just maybe one step, you got to be a good agent before you even apply for SWAT. Rookie agents, as you know, are often about 30 years old. So you've got men and women applying for SWAT that are in their mid-30s, and they're already working cases. And if they get accepted to the team, now they've got to figure out how to train at least 4 days a month, not including high-risk operations, and keep up with all their casework. There's no reduction in casework when you're on SWAT. There's no extra pay. It's just a commitment to do it because you think it's important.
Yeah, I'm looking at a sentence from your book where you talk about the core mission of the FBI is the job of the case agent.
Right.
And you also say that SWAT guys have a reputation of being some of the best case agents. Why do you say that?
That comes from my personal experience from 23 years on our team, as well as friends of mine around the country on other teams. If you ask guys in the Oklahoma City division, where I spent my whole career, who was the best at cyber technical stuff, they'd say my teammate Nestle. If you wanted to ask them who was the best at VCAC, they'd tell you Little Toe. It wasn't like they were trying to get away from their investigative responsibilities to be on SWAT. They were using SWAT to further their investigative abilities.
That's pretty interesting. In your book, you talk about 13 different assignments that you had as a SWAT sniper. I guess we do have one last thing that we need to talk about, and that is all the positions of a SWAT team.
Once you're selected for a SWAT team, you're training to be an assaulter, and everyone is an assaulter. So you have to learn to clear structures. You need to learn basic first aid, the rappelling, land nav, all that. And some people just do assaulters their whole career, but most guys will pick a specialty. That's usually a nationally registered medic, a sniper, a breacher. And now we have dedicated mini drone pilots as well.
All right. And I know your book signals right off to everyone that your chosen position on the SWAT team was sniper. In explaining what you did as a sniper, could you explain your roles? You mentioned two in the book. You talked about reconnaissance and surveillance.
I think in the book I describe reconnaissance and surveillance, which sound like they're sort of the same thing in sniper craft. Reconnaissance is looking for the bad guy. It's stomping around in the woods or climbing up onto mesas or something like that. And then once you've found him, you're doing surveillance. You're surveilling the bad guys. That's the difference between surveillance and reconnaissance.
And one, you're looking for the bad guy, and then the other, you're looking at the bad guy.
Exactly. I was also a medic. I was also the lead firearms instructor and a team leader. I probably wore too many hats looking back on it.
Yeah, and also we'll bring up the fact that you're a pilot. So there were some instances where even that came into play.
Right.
Yeah, you definitely wore a lot of hats, which is, again, one of the reasons I found the book so fascinating and such a great read. All right, I thought of one more thing that we should talk about before we start on reviewing some of the case assignments. And that was, you say here, that after 9/11, this was the beginning of the change from being 56 loosely affiliated field SWAT teams into one unified national SWAT team with 1,000 members stationed in 56 different locations. Why don't you explain that? Because that's going to come up as we're talking about some of these deployments.
Right. Well, when I joined the FBI in 99, and even when I got on the team in 2001, there was a national SWAT training unit, but the teams very much worked for the SAC. When I was on the Oklahoma City team prior to 9/11, the SAC could tell us what to do and what not. You know, obviously, we could execute warrants, follow the law, but he could say, I don't think this is a SWAT mission. We mostly did all our work in Oklahoma. After 9/11, when the Bureau started to restructure, one of the things that they did that I thought was a great idea is they came up with this one national patch. which I used for the cover of my book. And they asked all the teams to start wearing this one patch. And you can still wear your other team patch on your other shoulder, but it was the start of a mindset that the FBI has one SWAT team and that we're going to train together. We're going to go through the same basic training. I was the first group of SWAT operators to be selected out of Oklahoma City that passed the national SWAT fitness standards. And that was a big first change. Prior to me, the guys that were on the team, they used whatever selection standard they thought best because it was just the Oklahoma City team. That allowed for a lot. So when guys like South Beach transferred from Miami and Dangler transferred from Kansas City, I mean, a lot of the guys, when they showed up in our division, we knew they passed the same fitness test, the same firearms test. They went through the same selection. It was pretty easy to vet out that these guys are ready to step onto our team. And the same goes for national operations, which you read about in the book. When we went to Oregon for the Malheur Indian Reservation, the guys in charge said, hey, I want Oklahoma City and New Jersey to be Team 13. I got with his team leader and we talked about who was senior and then he was in charge and we just combined team. We had all the same, we call them center lane tactics. Our team might like to do something one way and another team another way, but when we were combined, functioning as one big team, same patch, same tactics, it really increased our capabilities specifically to do counterterrorism work around the country.
I probably can keep coming up with questions to set the stage, but I'll save them for either while you're talking about one of the assignments or we'll just save it to the very end. But let's get started because this is called Case File Review. What is the first case that you want to talk about? You can give us a little background on the case and then why SWAT was called in.
The first one that would be interesting to talk about is an operation that took place in the Glass Mountains, also known as the Gloss Mountains in Oklahoma. And like most of these operations, I was not the case agent. I think I might be different than a lot of your guests in that I wasn't the lead investigator. I was helping to resolve the case through the use of our tactical teams. Glass Mountain actually started with a case in Florida where a man made bombs and detonated them outside a place of worship. It wasn't much of a bomb and no one got hurt. And then he went off the grid. You can have a case happen across the country and call the closest RA in podunk nowhere, and there's an agent that probably knows exactly where someone would be hiding or exactly who to ask. That's where the Bureau, in my opinion, does things really, really well. And that's kind of what happened. Fun fact, I ended up meeting one of the case agents from Florida at an FBI advanced sniper school. And he talked about this guy, and I was like, I was actually at Glass Mountain when this case went down. The case agent in Florida called Oklahoma City, said this guy's been off the grid, this bomber, but his phone has pinged, and we think he might be in Oklahoma. I get a call at 11 o'clock at night. I'm actually getting ready to get in bed. And the team leader sends out a text message to everyone and says, everyone needs to be prepared. And then he gives the execute order. I'm already in my uniform at this point. And I drive a couple hours to this area of Oklahoma that it's pretty desolate and wait for the team to assemble. We get our gear and the team leader gets out his iPad and he says, we think this guy's phone is pinging right here. He says, go get another sniper, try to get eyes on. So it's the middle of the night, and Mackie, who's one of my best buddies and one of our snipers, a great guy, I see him and I'm asking him if he's ready, and he gets in with me and we follow a park ranger to this big, beautiful mesa. You can really not see how beautiful it is at night. And he tells us, you climb up there, you can see for 800 yards. So we climb this mesa. It's pretty easy. We hike using celestial navigation so that we don't get seen by using lights. And we don't have any depth perception with night vision. We almost fall off the mesa at one point. We all hike all the way across it, 1,000 meters, scan everywhere, and we can't see this guy. We're using infrared floodlights to try to enhance our night vision, and still nothing. We're kind of sitting there frustrated, and I'm punching the coordinates in my GPS again, trying to figure out why can't I see this guy when the sun starts to rise? So we've been out all night. As the sun is rising, I can actually see a glimmer that there's another mesa north of us, and it's between us and him. The top of that mesa lined up perfectly with the horizon. So at night, it just looked like this dark patch of prairie. So I use a laser rangefinder. It's 700 yards from us to this next mesa. I look at my GPS. My GPS says he's about 800 yards north of us. And it looks by eye that the mesa is about 100 yards across. I look at Mackie. I'm like, he's on the other side of the mesa. I do have to back up because I want to give props to my buddy Big Al. When we're still on the big mesa and the sun comes up and we can see the mesa north of us is when the Bureau aircraft shows up. We called it the Voodoo unit. When Voodoo showed up and I could hear from the radio that it's my buddy Big Al, he flew a loop north of us. He's the first person to see the pickup truck that looks like the bombers. So we have to go back 1,000 meters, back down this mesa, get in our car, drive around that mesa, get to the second one. And then the second one is a grueling technical climb. There's no trails. It's not meant for people to climb. We climb up that thing and we slowly belly crawl across because we don't know what we're going to see and look over the edge. And then we see for the first time with our own eyes, sure as shooting, there's the kind of truck that we're looking for. And there's a guy sleeping in a tent.
You're sitting on top of this mesa overlooking the subject. What do you know about him?
This one is a little bit different from most of our operations in that there wasn't hours of planning and rehearsal and reviewing search warrants and things like that. This was a call at about 11 o'clock at night saying, we think this guy is here. If it's him, we need to arrest him. I didn't explain this earlier, but my understanding is the bombing was several months prior to him pinging in Oklahoma. The FBI, I'm sure, had been conducting a fugitive investigation to try to locate this guy. He was savvy enough, they think, that he knew to not put his battery in his phone or to use credit cards, or I don't want to give away too much tradecraft, but a lot of the ways the FBI catches fugitives. And they think he thought he was alone in a mesa in Oklahoma. I have no idea why he drove all the way to Oklahoma and popped his battery in. And that gave someone somewhere the notification, this is one of the numbers we've been looking for. So hence the call out in the middle of the night. This phone we've been looking for months is suddenly alive again. And we don't know where it is, so they call the closest office. Can you guys go look and see? And if it's him, here's a copy of the warrant for his arrest. I'm sure for unlawful flight to avoid prosecution and then prosecution of the actual crime of detonating a bomb outside a place of worship.
Although it may seem obvious to you, I need to get a better understanding of what your purpose is up there on top of the mesa looking down on him. I take it you have multiple purposes. I'd like to get a better understanding of what those are.
The initial mission was, is there really even a person out here? That's when the team leader asks Mackie and I to go out. It just gives us a coordinate. And he's like, you're snipers. You guys know what to do. Get all your night vision gear and your GPSs. This is a coordinate. Go tell me what you see, which is a unique capability on a tactical team to have guys that could just say, yep, we have no idea we're going to end up climbing mesas and all this stuff, but we do. And then with coordination with the aircraft, their first mission is there's a person down here where no people are supposed to be. On top of that, this looks like the same make, model, and color pickup truck as the guy from Florida. We have pretty good reasonable suspicion now that our federal fugitive bomber might be the guy sleeping in that tent. Based on that and the fact that we have an active UFAP warrant, an unlawful flight to avoid prosecution warrant, now we have to formulate a plan to actually arrest him. So we sit there for hours and just try to collect data. Looks like he's been drinking some beer. Looks like he's been sleeping off maybe a hangover because all he does is get up and pee and it's getting close to the middle of the day. There's really no easy way to get to him. It's ravines and mesas. We've finally come up with a plan on how to pull up our armored vehicle. We navigate the team in because we're on top of the mesa. We can tell them turn left, turn right. The first step was get the MRAP, which is a surplus military armored vehicle, close enough so that the PA is within earshot so that we can tell him by his first and last name, we have a warrant for your arrest. We are not going to leave. You have to come out of the tent with your hands up. They get to the mesa and I'm on the radio and I'm saying, he's right there, that green tent, pull all the way up. And I can hear on the radio, it's nicknamed Little Toe is the team leader and Vulture is the driver. They're saying, we can't. There's this really steep incline. This is the second optical illusion of the night from me looking down at about 20 degrees onto probably a 30, 40 degree slope. It actually kind of looks like a level surface. The MRAP, the armored vehicle, can't get more than within about 75 yards of the subject because of this really steep angle that not even this vehicle can get up. They get out of the vehicle and they kind of try to set up a perimeter. They get on their PA system and they start telling him by his first and his last name, this is the FBI, we have a warrant, we're not going to leave, come out of the tent with your hands up. And it is loud enough that I'm 200 yards over and maybe 100 or so yards above, and I can hear every word from the PA. So I know this guy sleeping in the tent hears the PA and he doesn't really do much, and then he rustles around in the tent. And then what really alarmed me is that he zips up the bug fly on the tent, the netting, but he doesn't zip up the rain fly. So now he's in a perfect concealment position where For our campers listening to this, you can see perfectly fine out of a bug flap, but you really can't see in. So whatever we did, he knows that we're here, but whatever he's doing in the tent, we don't know if he's arming himself or what, but he's certainly not complying with any of the instructions.
Before he zipped up the bug flap, you could see inside and you knew that he was in there and could see him moving around.
That's right. Yeah. It really worried me when he knew that the FBI was there and his thought was, I'm going to conceal myself in this tent. And we find out later it's because that's where his stash of weapons were. We continue to give commands. By we, I mean the people in the armored vehicle. They give commands for what must have been 20 minutes. But to me, being tired and honestly a little cranky and dehydrated, I was frustrated. I actually sent a message from my phone to the team leader and said, what if I huck a flashbang from here? Something. We can't just sit here and continue to call him out. I was being a little impatient, to really be fair. So we thought, well, maybe we can use one of our little robots, and they can't get through that terrain. We thought maybe we'll get one of the bomb tech's big robots, or get Highway Patrol to bring one of their robots so they can't get through the terrain at all. He's not going anywhere. There's a plane circling overhead. There's snipers looking at him. We've got an armored vehicle. We can't get to him. I told the team I wouldn't walk up to that tent. I think it's reasonable to believe that when he knew the FBI was there to arrest him, he went into his tent for a nefarious purpose. And I said, I think if you walk straight up to that tent, I think he's going to shoot you right through the bug flap. And yeah, we've got body armor, but man, as a medic, I can tell you, you get hit in the femoral artery, you're going to die. We don't have good medicine for that out in the middle of the country. If you get hit in the face, you're going to die. So we slow it down. He's not going anywhere. And then someone says, Highway Patrol has canines. We convinced OHP, Oklahoma Highway Patrol, to come and bring a dog. And one of them comes. We explain the situation to him. And by we, I mean the manager's on scene. And he says, no, it sounds like this guy's just going to shoot my dog. No. And he leaves. Somehow they contact another trooper. He comes and he says, I'll do this, but on my terms, I'm going to come up on a flanking position where there's no crossfire, just a dog handler and another trooper that has a rifle ready. You can use my dog, but if I see anything go squirrely at all, I'm calling the dog off. I'm not going to sacrifice a dog on this. So the Oklahoma Highway Patrol releases their dog. It's just one handler and a trooper watching over him. I think the handler, maybe he was just testing the waters. I really don't know. Right when the dog gets to the tent, he calls the dog back. The dog immediately runs all the way back to the handler. And now the guy is rustling around in his tent. Now I can see the man who looks like the bomber. Looks like maybe sitting on a stool. It's a really, really small tent. But he's on the north side of the tent. I'm looking at it from the south side. So I see the tent and I see his head above it. And my crosshairs are hovering on the base of his skull, bouncing with every heartbeat. And I have no idea. But he's not responding to commands. All the hairs are up on the back of my neck. At this point, I actually snapped the safety off my rifle because it just wouldn't take a lot for this guy to kill someone right now. And we already know that he's not afraid to set off bombs. So within minutes, the trooper releases the dog a second time and gets within, I would say, biting range. I honestly don't know if the dog bit him. And I really can't see what the dog does because he's in front of the tent. It looked like he saw the dog coming. And when he did, he stood up. And when he stood up, I could see he's holding an AK-47 rifle with a hollow sun attached to it, which is just odd because I remember in that millisecond thinking, that's a hollow sun. I wonder how he attached it. There's no Picatinny rail. It's crazy how your brain works under stress. And I realize he's swinging the rifle towards my teammates in our armored vehicle, our MRAP, bringing the rifle up to his eyesight. And I'm looking through the scope. It's a 210-yard shot, but I've already been rehearsing this shot in my mind and reading the wind and calculated the gravity and everything. We've been up all night on the top of the mesa and halfway through the day, and we're out of water. Total, I've been up for 31 hours, I want to say. And so now I have someone who looks very much like a bomber that tried to kill people, that's not responding to commands, that knows we have a warrant for him, that knows this dog was coming for him, and he's armed himself. And I can see the rifle swinging towards my teammates, and I press the trigger. He goes down immediately. And I'm really not sure what to think. Did I miss? Did I hit him? And as I hit him, he actually ripples off 4 rounds from his AK-47 that strike the ground and ricochet up towards the MRAP. There's a chatter of gunfire, and I cycle the bolt. I think it's important for people to realize a sniper engagement is a very personal thing. I had my scope set on 10 power, and I'm 210 yards away. So my visual acuity is as if I were 21 yards away. It's really that simple. I can see 10 times closer. So I can see his face for hours. I've seen and watched this man. I couldn't really tell if I hit him or if he jumped onto the ground, but now I can see his head to the east of the tent. He's face down. And I click my radio and I tell him, sniper's still hot, hold your position. My thought was, if the guys think he's down and they run up and he's actually just waiting to ambush them because there's a bush between him and the flanking team, he's going to kill an FBI agent. I've got the bolt racked, second round in the chamber. My spotter, my sniper teammate, Mackie, says, good hit, which is the weirdest thing to hear someone say. And I said, I didn't look at him, but I said, what'd you say? And he said, good shot. Just very professional. And I see the guy lift his head up. I think, okay, he's not injured, I guess. It seemed like a really good shot. He lifts his head up and he looks left and right and he puts his head down. And then I realized there's this basketball-sized bloodstain in his torso where I'd hit him. And I know a lot about ballistics, and you're not going to survive a wound like that. He put his head down and he didn't move again at all. And I have no idea if seconds passed or half a minute passed, but we just waited. I told the team to just wait, and he didn't move. One of my teammates threw a flashbang near him, and they are very, very loud. I don't think anyone in this world could have a flashbang go off next to their face and not flinch. And this band does not flinch at all. And then the troopers have a beanbag rounds for their shotgun, something the FBI doesn't have. And they fire a beanbag round at this guy, which I assume has to hurt a lot. And again, I'm looking at him as if I'm just 21 yards away from him. I'm looking right at his face. I'm looking at his eyes. He doesn't move at all. And I think, this guy's dead. So I tell the team, Sierra's cold, meaning the sniper is no longer in a situation where he intends to shoot. And when you come up, know that I won't be pointing my gun at you. The guys hear that, and they make a plan. They come up in a very controlled manner. Dangler and Big Toe, two of my teammates who are nationally registered medics, they handcuff him first because that's protocol, and they remove the weapons from his reach, and they immediately start doing CPR. They have a BVM mask on his face. I can see him stuffing Quick Clot into this big hole where my crosshairs have been before. They're doing chest compressions. We already had an ambulance on standby for him because there was a chance someone was going to get hurt. The ambulance can't get to him for the same reason our armored vehicle can't get to him. My teammates get him up on a stretcher and they run him to an ambulance and drive him off. I just remember this bizarre feeling like, man, I'm in trouble. I've talked to a lot of other officers and agents since then. It's a pretty common theme. I think it's where my relationship with Lieutenant Colonel David Grossman really helped. I started email exchange with him. It's a pretty normal thing to think, man, am I in trouble because we're not supposed to kill each other? But I had to. And if I hadn't, he could have killed my teammates. But it still feels like you're not supposed to do this. It was a big deal for my teammate to tell me, good hit, good job.
In your book, you talk about learning from Lieutenant Grossman that the work that a warrior does should be thanked. Someone should say thank you to him or her after a lethal incident.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit more about that, because I can still feel your thoughts about taking this deadly action.
Mm-hmm.
So talk a little bit more about what it meant to you at that moment when Mackie said to you, good shot, because in your book you say that's the only time anybody said anything to you that was positive immediately after you've taken somebody's life.
I do feel like it's a really big deal to let someone know you did it right, you did it by the book, we're grateful for you. Other than Mackie, no one really said that. You and I are old seasoned agents. You do things by the book, and you don't want to have people mix their stories up or contaminate a crime scene. And so we become very methodical. Unfortunately, in this situation, the big bureau machine is being methodical with me as a component of the crime scene, not as a human being that has feelings. And I really am not trying to be critical. But, to have someone come up and say, hey, by the way, I need your gun. How many bullets do you have left? What kind of ammunition is it? You guys don't need to be talking to each other. You guys all need to sequester. We don't want you to accidentally mix your stories up. I'm in Stillwater, Oklahoma. I'm not in the same office with my teammates. So I go home and we're not supposed to talk to each other. Of course, there's a shooting investigation. We killed someone. It's one of those situations where the greatest good most certainly was not let him kill the agents or run off and make more bombs. It was probably the hardest psychological event I had been through in my life for someone not to call and say, hey, you did a good job. And I think there was a lot of people afraid to say, what if I say, hey, it's a good job and I wasn't there and I didn't see it? Because the only guys that did see it are SWAT guys, and the SWAT guys aren't supposed to be talking to each other. People like the guys I worked with closely in my RA, they just sort of were like, well, we heard that there's a shooting inquiry, but it's best if we just don't talk for a while. It feels a little bit like you're guilty of something. I really struggled with that. The Bureau set up one counseling session. They called in the whole team. It was almost sort of an ambush. If the whole team has to come, and we all come wearing our casual uniform, black polos and khakis, and we can see the chairs are set up in a great big circle. There's an agent from another division who's a peer counselor, and he talks for an hour or so, asks if people are having nightmares, asks if everybody's okay, and they're done. I even kind of dropped hints to my supervisor and to other people I know. What if I talk to a professional about sorting through these feelings? I very much got the vibe like, well, you work counterintelligence, you have a top secret SCI clearance. Should we talk about suspending your clearance? Well, I'm like, oh, no, I'm just fooling around. I'm fine. Everything's fine.
Wow. You share that in addition to those feelings about what happened, at least initially, they've taken your weapon. What normally would happen in a situation like that where there has been a shooting and someone's weapon is taken?
That's a good point. I make a point to illustrate that a little bit in my book. Most Bureau shootings right now are with carbines, short-barreled ARs, followed by pistols, and then a long way behind are long-range precision rifles like snipers use. For an agent to be involved in a shooting, it's pretty normal for them to take the pistol and say, we need this for forensics. You're an agent. You understand that. We need to know, are the bullets that are remaining in your gun the same as the bullets we collect? Does the rifling match? Does the striker imprint on your brass match your striker? This is good, solid investigative work. Here's a gun that we keep in the vault for just this reason that's exactly like your old gun. Slip it in the holster, go right back to work. Good job. And that's one of the things I wanted to point out is that when Big Al, my buddy, pilot buddy, when his RA partner got in a shooting, the division didn't have a gun because it was in RA territory and no one thought to bring one. So Al gave him his gun and went and got his backup gun out of his car. And later, it meant a lot to his partner for him to say, hey, I have to take your gun. You need it for evidence. You know how it works. Slipped his gun out of his holster, put it into his partner's holster, and it's like, you're whole again. You're armed again. You did a good job. No one's taking your gun away from you because you failed or made a mistake. This is just good investigative work. There really wasn't a procedure to bring another $5,000, $10,000 sniper rifle. If we had another $5,000 or $10,000 precision rifle in the vault, it would be assigned to someone. You can't have a spare like that sitting around. So when sniper training came up again, I had to say, well, I can't come. I don't have a rifle. And then another mission came up. We need to deploy snipers. I had to say, well, I don't have a rifle. They took mine at Glass Mountain. They keep it for months and months. So when I finally got my rifle back was actually, I felt like, sounds crazy, but sort of the healing process for someone to say, hey, this is your weapon back. Everything's done. It took, I don't know, maybe a year to get a declination letter, and then they gave us the Shield of Bravery. But for that, I don't know, year or so, I just felt like I had the weight of the world on my shoulders. And people didn't know. I could tell people knew, and they ran into me in the hall. Should I be talking to you right now, or are you in trouble? Because I heard they took your gun away and this guy got shot. It's all very hush-hush. Man, we would do so much better by agents if just right off the bat they said, this agent was in a shooting, and by all accounts, this is a good shoot, and we're grateful for what they did. And also, there will be a shooting investigation, and we're going to collect the rifle. Almost like you've been OPR'd. A shooting inquiry is different from an OPR investigation. It's just us doing things by the book.
I did another interview, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes for this one. It was episode 263 with Craig Arnold, and he talked about shooting incidents, and he talked about FBI medal program and how being thanked in a medal program months or a year later is great. But he does talk about what it feels like to have been involved in shooting incidents like he had. He also was involved in one where he fatally wounded the bad guy. So I've heard this before, and it's something that even as agents at firearms training, you don't think about that. This is our purpose of carrying a weapon, but what's the aftermath? What are your feelings? Even when you know and everybody knows that it is justified, the process of the shooting review, and then just your thoughts years later. What is that like, and how can we do better?
I think the main thing we can do better in the FBI is to normalize the importance of mental health. I'm sure it was the same for you in the Bureau. We had fit for duty physicals. And I think most people realize you went in those fit for duty physicals and you just told them everything's fine, because the real purpose is to find out, are you fit for duty? Not, I have this rash, I get a pain in my chest sometimes. It's be quiet, telling them everything's okay. And we don't even get close to that in the mental health realm in the FBI, where it's okay to go talk to someone and say, hey, I keep having a nightmare about this girl I pulled out of a closet. Or I find myself obsessing about this last shooting. I just want to talk through it with someone and have someone say, that's private. That's something the Bureau needs to know about. I tried engaging in our peer counseling system. It was ridiculous. It was terrible. And I tried talking to a supervisor about it. And it was very much a clinical, like, oh, are you telling me you're not okay to do the job? Should I be worried about you keeping your clearance? I love that job and I really wanted to help people. So I just say, yeah, just like I would go to a fit for duty if I felt like I had a little click in my knee. I'm not telling them. I'm telling my private doctor. But the Bureau has to normalize mental health. I mean, in Oklahoma, they have a law where they're required to talk to someone about if they've been through a lethal incident or something traumatic, and they come to you. It's completely normal to have on-staff therapists, psychologists to talk through the kind of stuff you see in law enforcement that is the ugly underbelly of society. And at least up until 2.5 years ago, when I retired from the Bureau, those resources only existed if you worked violent crimes against children, 50% of your Turk. You could meet with someone, and if you worked Indian country, more than 50%. But in my case, I was working Indian country a little bit and VCAC a little bit and some counterintelligence, some counterterrorism. I'd been in multiple shootings. I'd seen really mangled bodies. I participated in autopsies, taken pictures of it, and no place I could go to say, I feel like it's getting to be too much. Can I talk to someone?
I have to tell you that the interview that I'm going to post after this one is with an agent who worked crimes against children all of her career. She really says the same thing. Even though this kind of counseling may have been made available, she was afraid to take advantage of it because the knee-jerk reaction is, oh, if you're having a problem dealing with what you're doing, maybe we should reassign you to another squad.
Yeah.
So I've heard this before. This is an issue not just for the FBI, it's an issue for all law enforcement. And we've got to be honest with the fact that the suicide rate for law enforcement is increasing. We have had instances where we've had agents take their own lives because of what they feel is their inability to get help.
Mm-hmm. I think yeah.
I'm just sitting here, just letting you figure out, because
I don't know what to do next. This is not how I thought this would go.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want this to be a negative interview, but
Your honesty and the fact that you're being so transparent, I just want you to know how much it is going to help somebody who's listening to this. I just want to thank you again for talking about what happened on Glass Mountain and say to you once again, the fact that you were so open and honest about your feelings is going to save someone's life. I know it.
I appreciate you saying that. That means a lot to me.
Why don't we move on to another one of the cases that you had selected from your book that you'd like to share with us next?
Well, we could talk about Operation Mischief Mayhem. As you know, in the Bureau, for bigger cases, we'll give a code names because it's just easier to explain using 2 words than to try to shortly describe the whole case. This was a case about a young man that wanted to detonate a bomb in Oklahoma City for the purpose of killing people and really admired the movie Fight Club. If I understand this right, they talk about Operation Mischief Mayhem in the movie, and so they just named the case Mischief Mayhem. The lead agent, the case agent on the ground, was my teammate Twilight, in conjunction with an Oklahoma City police detective that was on the Joint Terrorism Task Force named Brian, who's a wonderful man and still a personal friend of mine. And I think this is a good example of case agents that are SWAT operators leading the way investigatively. Twilight has been working this case where this guy is talking to his friends about how he wants to build a bomb and blow up a building in downtown Oklahoma City. And for those of us who are Oklahoma natives or have lived most of our lives in Oklahoma, it is still a little bit of a sore spot and a raw spot to talk about bombing after what Oklahomans went through with the Murrah bombing in Oklahoma City. So this case got my attention and everyone's attention very fast. What are we going to do to make sure this guy doesn't light a bomb off and kill a bunch of people? And also, how do we arrest him? Because he can't be running around trying to do this and not have his day in court before a judge where he tries to explain his actions. So the case is at a culminating point where we brought in an undercover agent, a UC. Turns out the UC is an old friend of mine and a great guy, but he's in a different division. He comes back and develops a relationship with the bomber. And the bomber is telling him, here's how I want to get a van and I want to load it full of bomb material, ANFO, which is ammonium nitrate fuel oil, which is also what was used by the bomber in Oklahoma City at the Murrah building. He gets these big bags of fertilizer to mix with fuel oil to make bombs in these big barrels that he's going to load. And he's finalized his plan for how to murder a whole bunch of people in Oklahoma City.
And what's his beef? I mean, what is his ideological purpose of wanting to bomb people?
I wish I could answer that question better. It's another situation where, as a guy on the SWAT team who's not part of the case, I really don't know all the details. You have to remind me, I will send you the newspaper clippings from this story. I'll also say I'm not sure that there's ever a genuine reason to want to murder people.
True, but
sometimes when people say, well, what's the motive? I think your motive's not that important to me if I know we have solid probable cause you intend to murder people. He talked a lot to the undercover agent about how he wanted there to be chaos and he wanted the system to go down, particularly the banking system. He really wanted to bomb a bank, destroy it, and kill everyone in it and see the beginning of chaos, that he wanted society to unravel. It's the best of what I understand about his motives. So he's to the point where he has the ANFO, he's rented a storage building and has the van, and he's going to assemble the bomb. And so the undercover agent knows this and can tell when he's there and when he's not. So when he's not there, the FBI comes in, they wire the place for sound, cameras, everything. And they also take the fertilizer bags, open them. There's different grades of fertilizer. Some are no good in a bomb. They take all the fertilizer out and they replace it with a substitute that looks and smells and feels exactly like that fertilizer. And then they bring in an expert seamstress to sew the bags back shut so that no one can tell the fertilizer's been swapped out. And I love that. It's a really small part of the story, but I love that's something that the Bureau does.
So ingenious. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, people can criticize what they want about the Bureau, but when you and I have been in it and seen instances where they say, go get us a seamstress, and they just do it, that most of the law enforcement agencies don't have the capability to just say, this is important, we need to have this done, we need to have it done today. Boom, there's a seamstress sewing these bags back up so they look perfect. So he ends up making the bombs not realizing that they're not going to go boom. He and the undercover agent make plans to go drive, leave the bomb by a bank in Oklahoma City, I won't say which one, and then go a certain standoff range and watch the explosion. So at this point, the SWAT team's been briefed up on all of it, and the team leader says he wants me and another sniper to be on overwatch, meaning a position where we can mostly observe but also protect by lethal fire, a lot like Glass Mountain. You're really mostly there to observe, but if you have to take a shot to save lives, then do it. I get paired up with Default, who's a wonderful guy, a great friend, really great shooter. They put us in an unmarked pickup truck, and we spend a whole night trying to figure out, because we know where the bomber's probably going to park to watch the explosion, what he thinks is going to be the explosion. And we find a spot near a truck stop where we think we can blend in with just this old white pickup truck. But we are still within about 200 yards, which with the weapons we have and train with, I'm not trying to sound arrogant, but 200 yards is a pretty dang easy shot, even if you only have someone's head to shoot at. At advanced, we shoot out to 1,000. And I totally know this gun is capable. We set up a shooting platform and a tripod. We still put our uniforms on just so in case we run into law enforcement, we have our uniforms on. And the night comes for the attempted bombing. Default and I go out. We park the car in our predetermined space, make sure we know the wind and the barometric pressure and the humidity. I have my rifle set up, generally pointed to the parking lot where the bad guy is going to be, which is actually across the street, which sounds crazy, but I know exactly how the bullet flies. The bullet is going to arc way above any cars. I have a clean shot no matter what. And when the bomber and the UC, the undercover agent, come, I can look right into the windshield and report directly to the TOC, the Tactical Operations Center, what I see.
You know, the SWAT team knows, the case agent knows, and the undercover agent know that the bomb is not going to detonate.
Mm-hmm.
But the bad guy is sitting across the street from a bomb that's going to blow up a bank?
No, he's substantially further than that.
Oh, okay.
I can't tell you the exact distance. I would say he's a mile or more, but he found a position where he could see the explosion in the distance. I am just 200 yards away from him, but he's, I want to say, thousands of yards from this bomb. So we have to make sure the bank is cleared out under a ruse just in case. And then he delivers the van with what he thinks is a bomb. And he and the UC get in their car and they drive to their spot. At this point, again, it's nice to be part of the Bureau for a case like this because we have a certain aircraft you and I know about. It's just a really good surveillance platform. There's not a lot of that kind of equipment to go around. So we have thermal downloads. We can see on our link, like in the truck. We've got microphones in the truck. We've got cameras in the warehouse. We have an entire SWAT team on standby. It's a joint case with Oklahoma City Police Department with their detective Brian. And so all of their officers know, and they've backstopped what we're trying to covertly do. We're trying to blend in at a truck stop, but it's still kind of weird that there's just a white pickup truck sitting at a truck stop. And I can see a vehicle coming at us. I want to say like an old Impala. It doesn't look like a modern police vehicle. It has like an old lighting system on it, emergency lights. And I wonder if these guys are guards, paid guards. And so I key up my radio and I tell the talk. I think we're going to have visitors. I think these guys are going to come check us out. We already had a backstop plan. We already talked to Oklahoma City Dispatch, the FBI comm center, the chief of police for Oklahoma City. Everybody knows this operation is going on, even if it's a secret. All the right people know. So it's not that big a deal for someone to call someone and tell these guys to back off. But sure enough, they get out of the vehicle. You can kind of tell by their uniforms and their weapons and even the way they carry themselves that these are not street cops.
Paid security guards for something?
Yeah, exactly. I just tell default, I said, take your badge off your belt and hold it in your hand. They can't shoot us, but we were in a vehicle with my sniper rifle set up, pointing out the window, luckily out the passenger side, and they're approaching the driver's side. I folded the back seats up and I have this big sniper rifle set up on a tripod pointing out the window. So it totally looks like we're like an assassination team. And I'm waiting for them to freak out and point a gun at my nose. So I just had the badge out. I work in a small RA. I work with local police all the time. They're really my best friends. And so I just used a demeanor I would use with one of my buddies from the police department. I was like, hey, fellas, what's going on? You doing all right? Held my badge up. And I can see this guy's eyes get great big and his hand kind of rests on his gun. I can't remember exactly what I said. I said something along like, this is an FBI operation. Someone from your dispatch is going to let you know, but you guys are going to blow our cover. He's like, step out of the vehicle. Totally a legitimate request. And I'm like, brother, I cannot. I'm in a SWAT uniform. Luckily, this was before the operation kicked off. And I just said, I can't. You're going to have to trust me. He's like, no, get out of the vehicle right now. I was like, brother, I promise you I can't. I promise you you'll understand when you call your boss. I think he kind of scans. We're both carrying our sidearms. I have my fully automatic carbine laying on the floorboard next to me. I've got a sniper rifle set up. I've got my body armor and my helmet and my night vision. I mean, we really look like we're ready for World War III. And I don't know what went through his mind, but he just kind of nodded, not very convincingly, and said, okay, well, you guys be safe out here. He kind of stammered and went back to his car, and they drove a little bit away, and they immediately called 911, which was a good decision on their part. Whoever they talked to, I don't know if 911 patched him to someone, but I found out later they talked to him and they said, that is an FBI sniper overwatch team. This is a nationally recognized counterterrorism mission. You need to stay at least 100 yards away from those snipers while they do their job. Good job calling. We appreciate you. Also stay away from the snipers.
I cannot even imagine what was going through their mind. And I'm sure although the people in the gas station didn't stick around or know what was going on, they made it their mission to stick around and find out what was going on.
Well, and that's where I think we did pick a good spot because we were way out on the edge of the gas station, which was a good shooting and observation location, but it was also as far away as we could get from all the lights and all the trucks. There was no one within 100 yards of us when it happened. Because I thought that through, how burned are we? And we realized there's a chance we're going to get burned. That's why we backstopped it with the police department and even with security. No one had a hotline to the boss for the security team. But I thought, well, really, it looks like to an observer that the security guys pulled up to a unmarked pickup that says like Bob's Plumbing on the side. And they peeked their head in, they talked to someone, they smiled and waved and drove away. So we're burned to them, but I don't think we were burned for anybody else in the truck stop.
But you're right. If they had made you get out of the van, that would have been a different story.
Right. So when it all comes to a head, we have this huge team of people on the same page with really all the resources we could possibly need. And my job is, we don't know how this guy will react when he tries to light the bomb off. But if you want to build a good case out of this, you should let him punch in the codes. Otherwise, he's got a way better defense in court. That was the plan. If the UC will take him, he'll park, and they do, park pretty much on time where they're supposed to be. and I can see right in the windshield, and I can see the bomber on the left, and I can see the UC on the right. And they chat for a minute, and then the bomber gets his phone out. I can see his face backlit from the screen, and I can see his thumbs punching in it. And I'm asking Default, who's on a spotting scope, you think he's putting the code in? We're supposed to know, because of Bureau Tradecraft, when he actually uses the phone. Someone remotely can actually tell what that phone is doing. And he's like, yeah, I think he is. So he punches in the code to detonate the bomb. And I can see his eyes shift from looking at the phone to looking through the windshield into the horizon expectantly. It just gave me chills. It looks like he's waiting for the blast that will murder people. And then you can kind of see his shoulders slump, and he grinds his teeth, and he's looking at the UC and looking back. And this is what I'm there to observe, but I'm also there for. What if he gets a clue this guy's an undercover agent and he decides to kill him? And there's no one near him in the parking lot. It would take way too long for someone to run up to the vehicle and try to save the undercover agent, who I'm pretty sure by choice doesn't have a firearm because it would blow his cover. So he really can't defend himself if the bomber decides to shoot him. And I start realizing this could happen. I could be in another situation where if I don't shoot, he'll kill someone. He looks at his phone again and he punches the code in. I can see his fingers moving. And finally on the radio, someone tells us, hey, we got indication he put in the codes, but we want to see if he'll do it twice. So much harder to sit in a courtroom and say that was a coincidence when you do it twice. Same thing. I see him, his thumb's wiggling, and then I see him stare out. And what's sort of eerie about it is he's looking out into the horizon towards the bomb, but he's also looking towards where my truck is hidden. It's almost like he's looking over the phone and at me, and it feels like he should see me. Like I'm pointing a bullet at this guy's brain right now, and he's looking for an explosion. He's looking, can't see me anyway, but even if the sun was up, he's looking right past me. And they finally say, okay, that's enough. We're going to execute. And the SWAT team is already in their vehicles ready. They've rehearsed it literally hundreds of times. They've just repeated this L-shaped ambush over and over and over and over. They're ready to go. They give them permission and they come out of their hiding places. I can see the vehicles in the distance rushing up. And in the meantime, I see the bomber is starting to lose his mind. He's swinging his fists around in front of his face. There's spit coming out of his mouth. I'm using a 15, 18 power scope. I don't want to do math in public, but I can see him at the acuity of maybe 15 yards. I mean, it feels like I'm standing outside the car, staring through the windshield, and I can see him coming unglued. And the undercover agent has this distress signal, which in some cases might be like to take your hat off or to say a certain word. And I see him do his distress signal. I think, oh my gosh, there's not enough time for the assault team to go rescue the UC because this bomber knows his bomb's not going off.
His shouting and raising his fist is not because he sees the SWAT team coming.
No.
It's because he's frustrated and disappointed that he hasn't blown up this bank.
Yes.
Wow.
He keeps staring into the distance and punching on the phone. And I remember it's Vulture who's leading the assault team is telling me 15 seconds out, 10 seconds out. It is the longest 10 seconds of my life. I have the sights on this guy's head. I have a bonded round loaded in the gun that I know will go cleanly through the windshield and not deflect. And I'm thinking, man, I'm going to have to kill someone again. Please hurry up. And I mean, in the nick of time, the trucks screech up and he's so busy losing his mind, shouting and staring at his phone that as the guys get out, one of my teammates, Timmy was his nickname, he comes all the way around towards the front passenger side of the window and the bad guy never sees him. The bomber never sees him. And finally he clicks on his weapon light and shines it right in this guy's eyes. And he looks utterly confused. At this point, I've flipped the safety on my gun and I've actually slapped the bolt up and pulled it back. So there's not a round fully loaded in the chamber anymore. So now I'm behind an inert gun with a really good scope so I can still see and communicate what's happening. South Beach and K2, who happen to be two of our best breachers, their job is to get the door open, get the seatbelt off this guy and get him out without anybody getting hurt. They snatch him out of that car like someone punching a hole in an airplane and getting sucked out the side. They snap him out of that car so fast, it's hard for me to track what's happening.
And what about the undercover agent?
So the undercover is playing along. The undercover is like, oh no, is it the police? I can't hear anything. And honestly, I'm not paying a whole lot of attention to him. So simultaneously, guys are pulling him out of the other side of the car, and he's in character. He's like, wow, what the hell is going on? I don't understand. So they're handcuffing him, but you can tell they're sort of gingerly handcuffing him while he's cussing everybody, staying in roll. I was impressed. We went right up to the ragged edge on this. He knows he's going to get back in the car and his badge and his creds and a hot cup of coffee is waiting for him. And everybody's going to go, dude, what a good job. But between getting pulled out of the car by the SWAT team and getting in this other car, he played the part. And so the bad guy, all he knows is they're both getting arrested for both trying to set up a bombing. He goes so limp that South Beach, who's a pretty big dude, has to hold him up like a rag doll so that they can search him, because now they're looking for detonators. They're trying to isolate his fingers and scrub his body for wires, because bombers usually like bombs. They have more than one. It wouldn't be crazy to have one on your person or a different kind of detonator. So they're holding him up like a rag doll, looking through his clothes and his fingertips and everything, and they find nothing, handcuff him and drive him off. And then there's just this weird silence. Default and I have been crammed to the back of this pickup truck for hours, waiting for this to go down. And then it's just over, like that. I unload my rifle. He and I tell some funny jokes to each other. He starts the heater up because we're freezing. And we put all our gear up and call the command post and tell them we're coming off. We didn't use flashbangs. The SAC told us that she didn't want us to use flashbangs because it might draw too much attention. We didn't really understand. It didn't make sense to us, but it ultimately came down to, she said, do not use flashbangs. So there were people in the gas station I could see across the street just missed this happening.
Wow. They didn't even see it?
Yeah, it's just this eerie feeling as I see a guy open a door and hold it for a woman as she goes in, and I can see the cashier staring at his little TV, and people are pumping gas, and all the black Suburbans drive off, and we load up our gear, and as our tradition, we go meet somewhere and we do a quick debrief. We talk about all the things we could have done better, all the things that could have gone bad, called a hot wash or an after action report, and then we go eat a huge breakfast and go have a nap. But it was just this weird moment where it was just silent. People were going about their day. And I thought, if I went across the street right now and said, hey, do you guys know that we just stopped a terrorist bombing event? They'd say, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I just go home and no one knows that we stopped a terrorist bombing.
When we were talking earlier and reading your book, I know that you kept like a stuffed animal in one of your bags because there were instances where during these dangerous SWAT operations, children are involved. Could you tell us about one of those stories? Because I think people look at SWAT, which they should, as big, bad, dangerous men. But I also know that as a part of your book, you talk about that the SWAT team members are fathers and mothers. That shows that side of you and your teammates.
I love that. You're right. I wasn't the only guy, but a lot of us carried stuffed animals and candy in either our pack that we called our war bag or in the back of our trucks. And in fact, my teammate Vulture, his boys collected old stuffed animals that we would bring into the SWAT locker room so that if you gave away a stuffed animal, you could go in the... So in the locker room, we have flashbangs and gas and night vision equipment. And then there's a bucket of stuffed animals. Probably looked weird, but I always had one on hand. And I'll give you one example. It's called Operation Dog Pound. And we were looking for some pretty violent drug dealers, gang members. The one we were going for on this particular operation, his street name was Psycho, and he had it tattooed across his chest, so that made it easy to identify him. And he was a pretty awful, pretty violent dude. And we had a tip that he may or may not be at this location, but it was one of the few chances we thought we had to nab him, and so we ran out. And as we get to the house, a lot of times, really, what we'll do now is we'll surround him and call him out and not risk running in and getting into a gunfight. As soon as we get there to call out, this little girl comes out. I say little girl, I'm a dad, and she reminded me of my daughter, about probably 12, maybe 10. First thing out of the door, this is extremely uncommon. People usually lock the door, they try to run out the back, something like that. And here in the middle of the night with armored vehicles and red and blue lights everywhere, spotlights, this little girl comes out, shielding her eyes from the lights and holding her hands up like she's trying to stop a locomotive from going off the tracks. And she's screaming, he's not here. I'm completely stunned. Like, what is happening? She's crying. And I remember her face is so dirty that as she's crying, the tears are cleaning her face. She's yelling, he's not here. And I thought, she knows that we're coming for her dad. It sucks that she grew up like this, but it really sucks that she is not at all surprised that big men in uniforms with lots of guns are coming for him. We coax her over to the vehicle and ask her, who's inside the house? Is your dad in there? Is your mom in there? And she's telling us, no, it's just my two little sisters, and I don't know where they are. And so we could gas it. We could absolutely gas it. We could throw flashbangs in it. We could just sit for hours and wait for someone to come out. I remember Vulture and I seeing the look on each other's faces. It was his call to make, and he said, enter and clear. He didn't say gas it or bang it. Don't even put your masks on. I need you guys to go do it the hard way. This is how people get killed, is clearing buildings like this with no flashbangs, no gas, no distractions.
But you put your trust in her that she said that there's nobody else in the house except for her two little sisters.
Yeah. And it dawned on me, like, what if this guy is actually street savvy enough that he told his daughter, go out there and tell him I'm not here? I mean, but what if he did because he knows we're going to throttle it back? Because we're the good guys. We do play by the rules. And we're all dads. Everybody on the team is a dad and a husband. Everyone is a man of faith. Most of them are Christians. We have a strong sense of morality. It's what drew us into this job. We have a really strong sense of family. That's really what drew us into the teams. Dangler and South Beach and I are like, all right, we're going to send in a small team and we're going to go room to room and clear the structure with nothing to protect us, because this preteen girl is really convincing that her two sisters are somewhere in this house and they need to be rescued. So I think it's maybe a 3-bedroom house. We clear the first bedroom, clear the second bedroom. And I've had this feeling 100 times. I've done a couple hundred ops, but there's this feeling where you're like, there's not much of the house left. So it's either going to go really kinetic right now, or it's going to be a dry hole. We're either going to get into some kind of fight, or we're at the wrong place, or he snuck out a long time before we got here. We clear the last room. Now we're down to the last closet, and I can feel my heart beating. I'm thinking, this is it. And Dangler and I paired off where one of us could open the door and the other one could keep their weapon up. And he pops open this door to a closet, and there's two little girls, I want to say 5 and 3, and the 5-year-old has both her arms totally wrapped around the 3-year-old like she's protecting her. They've got this matted down hair. Their faces are streaked with tears, huddled in the back of this little bitty closet, and this 3-year-old is just shrieking, "Mommy left us, Mommy left us, Mommy left us." And I flipped my rifle onto my back, and I scooped down and I picked her up like she was my own daughter. She was more than happy to be picked up. She squeezed my neck. I remember feeling her cold little wet nose shoving right into my neck. She's trying to just find like a soft spot to bury her face. And Dangler picked up the other one. We keyed up our radios and we told them the whole structure's clear, dry hole. For whatever reason, the guy's not here, but we're bringing these girls out. We say precious cargo, so guys aren't pointing guns or anything when we bring out the girls. And of course, we have to notify DHS, and we got to try to figure out what to do with these abandoned girls. And so I took the little one, I sat down on the back of my truck, and she will not let go of me. I dig through my war bag and I pull out this stuffed animal and a sucker and handed it to her, and she just sat in my lap. I think we both decompressed for a minute, waited for someone, for DH to come up and try to find a family member. And I made a little note to myself, next time I'm in the SWAT locker room, I got to grab another stuffed animal and put it in my bag because I used another one tonight.
I can't speak, sorry.
Oh, you're going to make me trying to hold it together. Oh, I know.
I guess this is another time during today's episode that you didn't know it was going to go this way.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Every time this happens, because it happens frequently, I just think to myself, the public needs to hear this.
Yes.
Wow. I'm trembling, chills, but I just want to thank you so much for sharing that, because it really is an important aspect of what we're talking about today. And I did not want to do this episode without including that, because, as you said, other teammates had those stuffed toys in their bag. And I'm sure that throughout the country, there are FBI SWAT teams and other law enforcement agency SWAT teams that do the same thing, because bad guys have families too.
Yeah.
And you encounter these situations more often than we like to imagine.
Well, I appreciate you having a platform where we can talk about stuff like this.
So, everyone listening, we talked about 3 situations that Jeremy went through during his 21 years on an FBI SWAT team. I mean, you were only in the FBI for 23 years, 21 of them on the SWAT team. It seems like it's a young man's position.
Yeah. When I left the Bureau, it's because I knew it was time to leave the SWAT team, because at 50, I had a lot of aches and pains and it got harder and harder to pass the fitness test. And I also knew there were guys waiting that wanted on the team, and there's only so many slots. And so I had made a decision, when it's time to get off the team, I'm going to turn in my badge and gun and everything and go find something different. Maybe go be an author, write a book.
I can't wait to talk to you about that, because sharing our stories is my passion, is my mission. And so I do want to talk about your decision to write the book and plans for doing more of that. But before we get to that, we are at the part of the episode where I have to ask you my standard question, which is when and why you joined the FBI.
That's a tricky one for me because it was not a lifetime goal the way it is for most people. I would say it was a lifetime goal for me in the sense that when I was little, I wanted to be an astronaut and an FBI agent. I wanted to do something wonderful. That's all I knew. I do love law enforcement and military, but my first real passion my entire childhood was aviation. I love airplanes. I love flying. I love the science behind it. I learned to fly and soloed before I got my driver's license at 15. I had my heart set on going to the Air Force Academy and being a fighter pilot. Managed to get into the Air Force Academy. I had a guaranteed pilot slot. It was the big Clinton drawdown, and they eliminated 500 and something of the 800 slots in my class and then set up a system to dole out the ones that were left. And then at the same time, my vision had gone to 2060, which kind of put me on a red flag list. And so bottom line, I wasn't going to fly airplanes, even though I'd been at the Air Force Academy for 2 years with a guaranteed pilot slot. I did some soul searching and I thought, well, I'll be a sortie generation officer and I can be around jets and I can launch jets. And I really like being outdoors and I really like people. Sortie generation officers, a lot of times they'll command 100 troops the day they show up, 6 months after tech school. And that turned out to be a horrible job because now all day I'm around guys my age that are flying jets telling me how they want them fixed. It's like if you wanted to be a race car driver and you decided to be a pit crew with no chance of ever being a race car driver, it's sort of demoralizing. I actually hit a breaking point where I was deployed with the Air Force. We were flying over the no-fly zone in Iraq, and we were staying in a tent city in Turkey for like maybe 3 months. I called my wife on a satellite phone and told her I'm at my wit's end. I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with my life. And I've been praying about it. This is not what I'm supposed to do. And it's kind of cool. That night, she went to our regular on-base Bible study and met this guy named Adrian, who is still one of my closest friends. He's now a federal prosecutor. He's an assistant U.S. attorney. She's like, I met this guy. He came to our Bible study and he's an officer, but he wears plain clothes and he carries a pistol everywhere, all the time, on and off base. He has a cell phone before anyone could ever afford cell phones. I was like, it sounds like an OSI agent. When I got back from the deployment, I met him at the Bible study and we became fast friends. And I just thought, man, your job sounds perfect. He's like, well, it's also substantially harder to get into than pilot training or special operations. It's one of the hardest career paths you can possibly get into. He encouraged me. He said, I think we could really use a guy like you. You're a family man. You're a well-rounded guy. Your first concern is to protect people. I think you should apply. I feel like God opened every single door and window he could. My commander was completely on board. My direct supervisor was on board. I got amazing letters of recommendation, and they got me in the very next class. Then I graduated, top of my class, one of the top shooters, top academics, something called the Rentmore Award for the top agent. And for the first time really felt like, oh, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is running cases and helping people that are in need is exactly what I want to do with my life. I'm going to be an Air Force OSI special agent until they kick me out. And then I transferred to Florida, was a captain at this point. Never worn the captain rank, but I'm a captain wearing civilian clothes. And I do a joint case with the FBI because they're civilians we need to arrest. I get to meet these FBI guys. Paterini was one of them from the Fort Walton Beach RA. They started drawing me to the dark side. They're like, you should think about joining the Bureau. And I was like, you don't understand. I love OSI. This is what I think I should have been doing from the whole beginning. This is what I think I'm built for. They were like, so how do you feel about, your PCS policy? You guys have to move every 3 years. I was like, well, that's kind of stinks because I'd really like to start a family. They were like, well, in the FBI, you pretty much never have to move. How much do you get paid? I tell them captain's pay. And they're like, well, this is GS-10 through GS-13 pay. What about your tactical program? I'm like, well, there's not a huge tactical program in OSI because we are military members. We don't need like a tactical unit. And they were like, well, would you be interested in something like SWAT someday? One of the guys shows me all the SWAT equipment. And I went home and told my wife, I'm like, I've only been doing this job 3 years. I think I'm going to apply to the Bureau. I think the Bureau could be an even better version of this. They won't take me. There's zero chance they're going to take me. But if they ask me to fill out the forms, I'll fill out the forms. And then I think they had my background done and they had me a date at Quantico for new agent training in probably 6 to 9 months.
It was meant to be.
I think so. And then that was it. I joined the Bureau and I just thought, I'm going to try to get on the SWAT team if they'll take me as soon as I can. Somehow got on the very first selection that I got to go through. And I always wanted to be a good case agent and a good firearms instructor and good at collecting evidence and everything. But my real joy was getting to go downrange with my teammates and help people on their worst day.
I will say that I had a listener write to me, Trevor, and Trevor really, really wanted me to do some type of episode where I talked to an FBI pilot. So I am going to put out a call to action if there is an FBI pilot that's listening, that if you have a case that you can talk about, our cases where you were called as an FBI pilot to be involved or take action, I would love to talk about it because what did you do? You went out and got your own private pilot's license?
I did specifically so that I could be in the Bureau's aviation program.
You didn't talk about that a lot, but did you have a lot of call outs where you needed to use your pilot's license?
There's a lot in the book, so I just really briefly brought it up. But Big Al, who's one of my best buddies and was our lead pilot for our division, he would fly a lot of those missions. But since we came up as young agents in adjacent territories chasing the same bank robbers and fugitives, we had a friendship even after he moved to headquarters. So he would call me, like in the book I talk about, he'd call me and say, hey, do you want to sit right seat as co-pilot while we go do surveillance and map out this place where we're going to serve a high-risk warrant? But then when it came time to actually do the operation, I was the boots on the ground, not the guy in the plane. So I told the aviation coordinator when I first joined the program, I'll pay for my own pilot's license and I will fly with you anytime you need me to. But I can never go fully into this program because when a crisis hits, I will never be available to fly the plane. I will always be with the SWAT team. And they were okay with that. They said, we can just be a part-time pilot and fly missions here and there to do surveillance or transport evidence or something like that. And that was perfect for me. I love just being a part-time on-call pilot.
Now I need to talk to you more about your book, which again is called Send Me Chronicles of an FBI Sniper. I have to say again that I've read a lot of books. I mean, my FBI reading resource now, which is books about the FBI written by FBI agents and FBI employees who have been guests on this podcast, now has to be close to 90 books or more. And I even have 6 more books that I'll be having agents on to talk about until the end of this year. I've read a lot of FBI books, and yours is one of the best.
Thank you so much.
When it comes to how you set up the inciting incidents, how you talk about the complications, how you talk about the crisis moment, and then wrap it all in how it comes to a resolution was perfectly done. Before we got onto the podcast, I gave you this compliment and I told you how I am a writing craft person. I have tons of books that I have purchased and read about the writing craft and how you set up a story and how you bring it to a climax. And I was shocked to learn that you haven't really read all of these books, but for some reason, you are able to craft a story.
Wow. Thank you so much. You have no idea how much that means to me. I really appreciate that.
I wouldn't say it if I didn't believe it. I definitely want to make sure everyone listening, and that's thousands of people, Jeremy, I definitely want them to go out and purchase this book. We only talked about 3 of the 13 cases where the SWAT team was called out that you were involved in. We only talked about 3. Those 3 were just an example of what they'll be able to read about when they get a copy of the book. Why did you write the book and how were you able to do it with such clarity and such detail?
I wrote the book partly because I wanted people to know what FBI SWAT is because I think it's so misunderstood. And I wanted people to see the camaraderie and brotherhood that we had on the team. The logistics of it coming about was from lots of friends, in particular my cousin sitting across the dinner table one night saying, tell us a story. And I just thought, I can't think of any. Every time we do something, for lack of a better word, cool, I'm exhausted and there's adrenaline and you just don't encode long-term memories well, but I kind of remember the details. And so after that one specific moment, I thought, I'm going to start journaling these ops as much as I possibly can. So I ended up journaling about 140 of just about 200 high-risk missions that I went on. It was sort of cathartic to write them out because some of them were very emotional and you could just see people very broken. I just wrote it for me. My daughter's the only person that's ever seen the entire journal. And then I kept a lot of newspaper clippings. And like I told you, I decided when I thought it was the right time to step off the team, I was going to turn in my badge and I was going to try to start a new chapter in my life. I wasn't sure what. I thought it was to be a firearms instructor. And I have done that. I started a small business and it's good. It's a good business, but I didn't feel really like I was doing what I was supposed to be doing with my time. And so I started taking the stories from my journal and I started writing them so that they were easy to read. As I was writing them, I thought, well, I'm going to write a bunch of these that I missed what I was doing so much that it was really cathartic. There were times I sat and wrote and cried like a crazy person, and I don't even know why. I think it just was really reliving these moments that I had just kind of put in a file drawer. I wrote a lot at night while my wife was asleep and just retold the story. I had a thought about, what if I put this together as a book? I don't know anything about writing books. I don't have an editor. I don't have a publisher. It's just me sitting behind a keyboard late at night, typing like a crazy person. And so I talked to a buddy and he said, write one chapter and publish it and see what anybody says. And if it's garbage and move on. And so I did. So I wrote up Glass Mountain, which I think is maybe the third pop in the book. 27 pages. I wrote it up. I charged like $4.99 for it, and I put it on Amazon, and I was blown away by the reviews I got. People were calling me and emailing me, not only people that I didn't know, but non-law enforcement people, and then a bunch of teammates and guys that I'd never known from the Bureau calling me and saying, hey, I was on the New York team and this really spoke to me, or cops that were saying I'd been in a shooting. And so I had all these people saying, when do we get the next chapter? When's more? And so I thought, okay, that's it. And so I just started writing random stories from my journal and polishing them. I'd let my daughter read them, and she has a real eye for literature. She was my editor while she was in college. And she would just pick through, and what she did beautifully is that she would say, all right, you were talking about how you felt here while this is happening, and you stop telling us about how you feel, and then you start talking to us about how you feel again. Dad, right here in this middle part, you need to tell the readers what you were feeling. It was such good prompting because I would say, oh, I see what you're saying. I think I don't want the readers to know what I'm thinking, but now that you say it, I'm going to write it. When I got to 13 of the 200 missions, I was at 90,000 words. Several people told me, like, don't go bigger than that. You don't want to ship off a gigantic book that seems overwhelming, so stop at 13 and send it out. I just released it with the Bureau's permission not even 2 months ago. The feedback from people has been just absolutely wonderful. I didn't know I was going to leave the Bureau and be an author, but I feel like this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing right now.
I think the most important thing that you just said when it comes to those listening who are also thinking about writing a book is that you put in your feelings. That's exactly what the difference is, because I've read so many really good FBI books where the agent tells what happened, but they don't share their feelings. They don't share their thoughts. This is something that you have to do when you write crime fiction, which is what I'm trying to do. In crime fiction, you have to share those thoughts. Not just what happened, what's going on, but what the person's feeling, what they're thinking. You've captured that so well in writing a narrative nonfiction, where it is absolutely necessary for you to use those same skill sets that you use in fiction to write a memoir. Beautifully done. So here's my question. What's next as far as continuing writing?
I have a couple other ideas. One in particular that I really feel like I might jump into. I've started doing interviews for a book called Shields of Bravery. The idea is that I've met so many men and women in the Bureau who have been through stories that sound like they would be ridiculous if they were in a movie, but they really happened to a real person I know. Gunfights and life-saving things. I run into an agent at an in-service in Virginia, and we go get dinner, and they tell me the story, and my jaw just dropped. That's amazing. Before I retired, I called FBI historian, I called the medals office, and I said, as someone who has a shield of bravery, I know what it's like to go through the process, and I know where they engrave people's names in this plaque made of glass, and the medal that they actually give you to wear. I can understand that. Who else has been through things like this? For the last 100 years or more in the FBI, who are the men and women that went through something that is just heroic? Way more than anything I've ever done. And I'm not trying to be negative at all, but the answer I got from everyone is, we don't know. They said, we can give you last year's medal ceremony list if you want, but we don't know. I said, we have to, right? Like, the FBI is famous for having warehouses full of files and figuring out how fingerprinting works in it, right? Like, we have files upon files. We have files about our files. Where's the list of all the Shield of Bravery recipients who have been heroic in the line of duty and are so quiet and humble they don't talk about it? I want to find them, and I want to talk to them. I want to write their story for them.
Wow. I can give you two names right now. And of course, I've already mentioned Craig Arnold.
Yeah.
And the other name I'm sure you know, and that's John Kufta. Neither of them have books. Actually, John Kufta is this year's FBI Agents Association Distinguished Honor Awardee. So he is going to be getting an award from the FBI Agents Association at a fancy gala this year and being recognized for his bravery and his actions. John was the survivor of the 1994 Washington, D.C., the D.C. Metro Police Headquarters ambush, where we lost Special Agent Martha Dixon and Michael Miller,
Oh, yeah.
and where we lost Metropolitan Police Department Sergeant Henry Hank Daly.
Yep. I know what you're talking about. That's a great example.
Yeah, and both of them were awarded the FBI Medal of Valor. So I think it's an excellent idea for a book. And knowing the way that you write with so much passion and compassion, I think that you would be an excellent person to write these stories for those who, for whatever reason, have not written their own. I encourage you to continue with that project.
Thank you. And also, in the meantime, my next immediate project is trying to figure out how to do an audiobook. That's what I'm doing day to day right now, is trying to figure out the sound design and stuff that you probably do, like getting clicking sounds out of speech and trying to put together a good audible version of my book, Send Me.
Absolutely. I'm really an audiobook person.
Me too.
I listen to almost every book. When someone offers me their book, I'm like, oh, please tell me you have an audiobook.
Me too. Yeah.
Because I'm so busy and I still love to read that when I'm walking or washing the dishes or doing some type of chore, that's when I can use and read the audiobook. And that's what allows me to read 2 or 3 books a month.
I am exactly the same way.
Plus, my mind doesn't work well anymore. I can't sit and just read. My mind is constantly going. I'm constantly thinking of what else I could be doing. So I have to use that opportunity when I'm in a car or exercising. That's when I can enjoy reading for pleasure, because otherwise my mind won't let me. It's doing other things.
I completely understand. I'm exactly the same way. And I got a lot of requests for an audiobook, but I don't know how to do that. I'm learning it now. But I thought, what a hypocrite I would be, because I love to listen to audiobooks while I run and hike.
Yeah, and that's my whole thing too. All of my 3 books are audiobooks because I'm the same way. I'm a podcaster. I believe in audio, so I had to also make sure that my books were in audio format. Well, I certainly look forward to anything that you put out. Again, for those listening, one last time, I will encourage you to pick up a copy of Send Me, Chronicles of an FBI Sniper.
Thank you.
All right. I love to give my guest the last word. What would you like to say?
You have to put forth effort if you want to be in a tribe, and that we don't flourish if we're not in a tribe. When I think a lot of agents, businessmen, everybody, when they get out of what they do, they have a built-in tribe. They just show up at a building and they're these people that work with them. And that was one of the joys of my job, was walking into the SWAT team locker room or walking into the headquarters and seeing all these colleagues that were friends of mine. And when I retired, for the first time in 32 years since I first joined the Air Force, I felt like I didn't have a tribe and really struggled with. It was so much harder than I thought. And I'm just now realizing that your tribe is what you make it, and you have to put yourself out on a limb to be in a tribe, and you're not going to flourish without one. I would say to people who feel like they're not in a tribe, they've got to go out and find them. They're going to find them in the gym. They could find them at church. They could find them on the shooting range or whatever it is. And then you decide to be vulnerable with another person so that you can carry each other's burdens. That's what I've been doing since I retired, is finding other groups of people that are like-minded and realizing that they can be my tribe too. And I'll never give up the FBI or the SWAT team as my tribe. It's just that I don't see them as much as I used to, but I'll always keep in touch with them. And in the meantime, take a chance on being vulnerable and go find that next tribe, because they're waiting for you.
And that's the end of the interview. In your podcast app's description of this episode, there's a direct link to the show notes at jerrywilliams.com, where you'll find photos of retired agent Jeremy Rebmann, as well as case-related links to articles about the bombing suspects of the SWAT operations reviewed. And of course, there are links to Jeremy's book, Send Me, Chronicles of an FBI Sniper, and to his website, FBISniper.com. There are also links to 2 FBI case file review episodes featuring agents involved in incidents resulting in fatalities. Episode 263, Craig Arnold, Shooting Incidents and the FBI Medals Program, and Episode 267, John Kufta, about the 1994 D.C. Metro Police Headquarters ambush. I hope you enjoyed the interview and that you'll share it with your friends, family, and associates. You can show me just how much you liked it by buying me a coffee. There's a link in your podcast app's description of this episode, or you can visit jerrywilliams.com and tap on the little coffee cup icon in the bottom right-hand corner of my website. Don't forget to follow FBI Retired Case File Review on your favorite podcast app. Now, this podcast is all about true crime, but if you're also interested in crime fiction, once a month via my reader team email, I keep you up to date on the FBI and books, TV, and movies. When you join my reader team, you get access to my FBI reading resource, a colorful list of more than 70 books about the FBI written by FBI agents who have been guests on this podcast. There's nonfiction, crime fiction, true crime, and memoirs. You'll also get my FBI reality checklist, where I debunk 20 cliches about the FBI and receive news about what I'm up to and about my FBI nonfiction and crime fiction books. I want to thank you for listening to the very end. I hope you come back for another episode of FBI Retired Case File Review with Jerry Williams. Thank you.